Okay, welcome everyone to our September 23rd Finance Committee meeting. We are focused on the 5-year capital plan. We have committee members Jamel Robinson, Alfredo Ballerin, Mike O'Brien. We are also joined by some wonderful staff. We have John Rafael Pichardo, Michelle Andre. We have Nick Riley, Mike Wheeler. Oh, I thought you were showing like more people there, Nick. We have our treasurer, Darius Shanafar, and we have the fabulous Danielle Gillespie. We are also joined by the incredible Joe Igo and the wonderful Sonia Frederick, council members. So thank you everyone for coming, and let's get started. So I'm assuming everybody got the information that was sent out. Yes. My printer just started running out of ink, so it's even easier to read than it was before. So if we could really begin the discussion. Nick, I know that you've done a lot of work on kind of updating our capital plan. I think the overall concerns with the capital plan is that it didn't really fully address. We're also about to be joined by Tom Hoey. Welcome, Tom. And here is our last committee member, Judy Deshay. So it didn't fully have the planning component and the overall financial planning and also best for capital plans component with it. So in an endeavor to do that, we talked about kind of establishing a new process. One thing I want to really focus on before we get too deeply into this is I really see this kind of change of what we're doing as a process. It would be wonderful if we could just wave a magic wand and make everything perfect. But life would probably be dull, one. And two, I don't even know that we'd need to be here because you just wave a magic wand. So, so just to keep that in mind that we're working through this as a process. What we have this year, I know that they've done a great deal of work on it. As we go through this, if there's different changes, some of them we might not be able to see in this specific year's capital plan. We also might need to do more work on this process. So I kind of want to create expectations of people understanding that we're probably not going to have a perfect thing here. We're going to hopefully have I know that Nick has put a lot of work into this, which is deeply appreciated. But I'm sure that there will be different pieces that we may or may not be able to see with this current budget. But as we talk about it, we'll be able to see it more in depth moving forward. So if somebody would like to take it away, I will hand over the reins to discuss it.
Yeah, I'll take over. So when talking with the group here about how we wanted to structure the capital budget, our primary goal was to keep some of the formatting the same, but then add additional components in to help justify department reasonings for why they're going out for certain projects. So the general format is going to look the same at first. So you're going to have a schedule of principal and interest payments. You're going to have a current year summary. You're going to have a 5-year summary. But what is changing this year is that after you have the current year plan detail, you're going to have a department breakdown. So every single department that's bonding within that year is going to have a breakdown of what they're asking for, and more of a narrative that follows that in the budget book that's going to explain their rationale behind that. I included fire in the attachment just as an example. I used fake letters and things like that just to show you guys a concept of what we would be structuring it like. So for instance, you would see the request that fire had for that given year, and then there would be a narrative under that that would justify the amount that they're requesting, what it's intended to replace, the mileage, engine hours, the lead time on the projects, and the useful life of the project as well. And that will be broken down for every single budget year within the 5-year plan, not just year one. So it's going to be for 2022, 2023, 2024, and 2025. There's going to be narratives for each department request.
Okay. I just need to grab my glasses because that's teeny tiny. So I'll be right back. So does anybody have any immediate questions on this? What I'm interested in is, because there's got to be, as we're going through to discuss bonding, as we kind of deal with the, the different requests with bonding. I know, so if we talk about the level of detail, Nick, when you were right in with fire, we got like a whole different thing when we were looking at bonding, like a plan. These are the vehicles, this is how long. I think I don't know that that's necessarily the level of detail that needs to go in the budget book, but when you look at the OSC guidelines, which Judy will be pleased, I spent some quality time with those today. And that's actually, I mean, they talk about doing, that's kind of what they talk about doing, which I think that's kind of what you're getting. I feel like there's a sweet spot, like having that level of detail for every department. Yep. Is probably not.
So to run with what you're talking about, we had looked at what other cities in New York are doing. Syracuse and Rochester in particular have running capital improvement programs that we've adopted some format styles, especially with how they construct their narratives. We actually thought, based on a lot of the information that Judy sends us from the state comptroller's office, that Syracuse and Rochester's narratives are probably even a little lacking from what the comptroller's office is asking for. So to take the fire department as an example, in 17 or 18, Judy and I had worked on a complete apparatus replacement schedule with them that had every single apparatus listed in terms of when its replacement year is going to be, what the mileage is, the engine hours, etc. What I think is going to be included in the narrative that's going into the budget book is going to be the exact request for that year, not the entire fleet schedule. So for instance, for DGS, you're going to see, like, if they're replacing Packers, it's going to show you the age of all the Packers that are being replaced and how that relates to what the recommended useful life is for those Packers, what the mileage information is, the annual repairs. So there's going to be a narrative that kind of explains all those items that compose that fleet plan, but it's not going to be the entire fleet plan with items that aren't being replaced, because that's just going to take up unnecessary space to include that in the budget book. But that can be something that a department can provide when they're presenting to the council for a meeting.
Right. Okay. That would be my follow-up. Yeah. That level of detail, I mean, especially when you're talking about bonding, to be able to look at that level of detail, it is really important to do that. And then the other piece of that, in terms of our, like our buildings themselves, then that kind of, if you have because the OSC has a whole thing about, I mean, the first step is doing like a full asset review, which is.
Have we done that? Have we done that?
I don't think that we have a full asset review for buildings in terms of what their age is. I know for vehicles, the major departments that I've talked to, police, fire, and DGS, have provided us with their entire fleets and a entire fleet replacement schedule. They're not all together, but between the departments for what their asks are, they do have that supporting information. I don't have that for buildings though.
And I think that, I mean, I would say that would not necessarily, I think that that's been an issue that I've seen as we've kind of gone through this process, that overall, the way and this makes sense, municipalities across probably the world do this, where instead of putting money into buildings, you put money into people. That's why school districts actually have building aid, because that schools were crumbling, and that was a big push one year. So it's not, I think that's one of the situations that we are in, but even to get to a place where I think that should be a goal to kind of say, I mean, if we take last year when the police department came in and wanted, with bonding, and said, we want X amount for this police station, really having that be part of the process would be an ideal thing, which I guess that would probably be a conversation with Randy, or, to kind of see like how that's possible to do that. Is that something where we can help, like, can our building inspectors help with that too? But that should be an important part of our asset process as well, in the long term.
That's at the basis of a capital plan. You know what your capital is, your capital investments are, you know the status of any projects, and you know what you need to maintain your capital investments, in the same way that a homeowner would say, oh gee, I know in 5 years I'm going to have to budget for a replacement roof.
Well, we know, based on talking to departments, what their 5-year horizon is for what they're going to need to do for repairs. Like, we know from Randy, we have the detailed narratives about these are all the projects that he has on his horizon in the next 5 years. I'm just saying that in terms of what the budget office has and doesn't have, we don't have a complete asset list of all of our buildings in terms of the status of when they were last repaired. I'd have to talk to engineering about that. Our talks with engineering have been primarily based around what they see on their horizon for the next 5 years and what we would have to budget for as a city to address that.
And that's pretty much what we've always done, without taking a little bit more comprehensive view of it, to really start with understanding what is engineering's assessment of the status of all buildings and facilities, bridges, etc. At the current time, not just what Randy has decided is, might be in need of repair or replacement over a period of time.
I just want to know.
Correct. That is a long-term goal, and we have, as the budget office, we've done that with vehicles. I can now say with confidence that we have that level of insight into vehicles within the police department, fire department, and with general services, which is definitely allowing us as a budget office to be more insightful in our decisions that we are making with vehicles. But in terms of talking to Randy about buildings, Randy is the city engineer, and I never went to engineer school. So, there is an aspect that I'm going to have to trust Randy, that he is the resident knowledgeable person on the status of buildings.
So I just want to do a quick break in here, because we have been joined by the incredible Joyce Love, and I have not noticed her yet. And there she is. So I would say that that's something that we should add to our list of things that should be added at some point. And I'm assuming that it would be helpful. I think that it would be helpful. We have engineering coming in as part of to talk about their budget. I think talking about this with engineering would make a lot of sense, and seeing like if there's follow-up conversations, because it is something that I know I have talked about in meetings over the years, because that was when I was on the school district and focused on facilities. That was a regular, it's actually state mandated for the district because of building aid. But it's, I think it's time to kind of discuss with them how we put that plan in action, and actually push it so that you guys are able to get that information and work it into the capital plan. Unless, Nick, you want to go to school to be an engineer, because that'd be great.
Not at the moment. Budgeting is all the fun excitement I need in my
Is
life
that
right
all
now.
you, all right, just let us know, because we can have you be head of everything. We'll just send you out.
No, thank you.
It's always nice when you're on across somebody who's involved in finance that has a sense of humor.
True.
Yeah.
So.
Can I jump in here?
Absolutely.
So I need to go back to our city charter. Our city charter talks about the budget shall include a 5-year capital plan. So when you're talking about the detail only being for the ensuing year, that's not really consistent with our city charter, which is kind of like what I was trying to also hammer home last year. We have a capital budget that's only a capital budget. It's not a capital plan. So the 5-year plan, if I can read this, the first year of the capital plan shall be in the budget, included in the budget for the ensuing year. The 5-year plan shall include a clear general summary of its contents, a list of all capital projects to be undertaken during the ensuing 5 years. So that's specific, those are specific projects. That's not sort of, oh, engineering is going to ask for $2 million next year for city building improvements and $500,000 for bridges. It is a list of all capital projects to be undertaken during the ensuing fiscal years. And cost estimates, sources of funding, and where appropriate, recommended time schedules for each such improvement. And that is kind of also what the PFM report, audit report had recommended. It is essentially something that the OSC recommends when you look at the national municipal planning organizations. This is, we're not doing it, and it's recommended, and it's in our charter.
So that was what, when I had first started talking about what we're going to be showing this year, is after we show the current year's plan, which is, it's going to be in the same format as what we had in the budget. So like what you would see last year where it says a 2020 and then a breakdown of all of our requests. After that, in the budget book is going to be a broken down request of the specifics that we are asking for. So if we're asking for DGS equipment, it's going to have a specific list of the equipment and the cost of that equipment in the capital plan. If recreation wants to borrow for stuff, and that's in the capital plan, it's going to have a specific list of the playground location, the spray pads, the court resurfacing, the locations of where that is, police vehicles is going. So that is going to be in the 5-year plan, or in the capital plan for 2021.
It's going to be in it for 2021, but it will also show it for 2022, that kind
Correct.
of breakdown and detail. Okay.
Yep. So
okay, I thought that you were saying that it was just for 2021, that you're only doing it for the entire year.
After all the department narratives for 2021, there's going to be a 2022 like total budget that's going to be in the same format as the current year's ask, and then after that, there's going to be all the department narratives about the specifics that they're asking for with their explanations and justifications behind that. Then there's going to be 2023, 2024, 2025. So every single year is going to have those justifications with specific breakdowns.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
I think what's not going to be included is the highly, highly detailed department by department breakdowns, which we will be able to get in the individual department presentations.
Correct.
Well, now I'm a little confused, but I guess
in other words, like they're not going to say like this police car for like this specific police car with this mileage is going to, it will probably be police cars.
Is that correct?
So for instance, like what we would have with vehicles is it would say, for instance, APD is replacing X, or is requesting to replace 10 police vehicles. The vehicles that are being replaced are on average 8 years old. They have 120,000 miles on them average. And it would talk to you about what the average is. It's not going to say we're replacing Unit 5, VIN number 263. I mean, that stuff the departments have sent us. They have that they can present to you if they're requested, but it's not going to actually physically be in the budget book. The budget book is going to say that like the fire department is replacing like this truck, it's going to go out of service because it's at 100 and X thousand miles and 30,000 engine hours. It's not going to be a specific, this is the exact truck that's being replaced, but during the department's presentation to the council, they can have that information available to present. Because that's the information that when we go through this over the summer, that's stuff that we ask for them to look at.
Thank you. I do want to note that Richard Conti had provided, and I thought I had shared with everybody, the capital plan for Watertown, which I think is something that, in a sense, we lust after in terms of the level of detail. And one of the things that it did is, it let you know what was being purchased as replacement equipment as part of essentially the operating budget as you went along, and then also separately as the capital budget. And one of the things they did is they actually included like a picture of the equipment that was going to be purchased. And I know that Ginny, when DGS comes in and they're showing a picture, it's like, I get it. Now I understand. And this, and we could talk about, what the uses are, or it talks about what the uses are and why, why that is being purchased. So just in terms of models.
And Judy, I'll tell you, because I just pulled it up on my computer. We don't have the glossy pictures that Watertown has, but we have the narrative. The narratives are pretty much on point from what I'm looking at here. So with the exemption of pictures, ours is following along with what this looks like.
And I would just say, in terms of the printing of the budget book, which I know Mike will back me up on this, I would be fine with not having the pictures there, but I definitely want them to be part of the presentation. So we don't have that moment again where we had they're all talking about Packers. I'm like, what is a Packer? And they're like, guys, it's a garbage truck. And everybody's like, oh, a garbage truck. Why didn't they just say that?
So one of the things that could be nice, since we're doing so much electronically, is actually potentially just having a link to an item that is, being looked at in terms of being purchased, so that when you're in the electronic version of the budget, you can actually click on some of those links. That I think is, I'm just saying that from an aspirational standpoint, could help our review of things more quickly.
I don't know how that would go into the budget book, but I mean, that's something that we can work on doing, because I mean, for the most part, that's going to be in my DGS probably for a lot of their specific equipment and vehicle requests. I mean, that's something that we can work with Joe on. And I don't know if we'll be able to make it into the online budget book, but we can maybe have it as a resource, or work towards having it as a resource.
I think that's that's just
Yeah.
like a long-term goal that I think it's a great idea. It would make things a lot easier, but I also think it's something that might, let's get the buildings assessment first. And then we'll get the have to haves first. And then, but I love that idea. So does anybody else have any questions, or go ahead, Joe.
As far as the study of the buildings, every year some emergency seems to keep coming up at City Hall, whether it's the roof leaking, the boilers breaking, which leads to asbestos being taken out. And I believe we've been taking that out of contingency. So I don't know how some of this stuff is going to be handled, if that's any different. Seems like some of our buildings are in tough shape, and I thought I heard that they were going to do a review of City Hall where you could study some of this and then get to a true capital plan. But the way it is now, I don't see how you can do that.
We did, we bonded for a study of City Hall. So that should be,
For a
that,
master plan,
yeah.
for a
Um,
city hall master plan.
I think the ultimate goal is when you actually do a good, like a thorough review of your buildings and then plan out when the repairs are happening, then you avoid being in that situation. Some things there's nothing you can do about. I mean, sometimes like a boiler breaks
This happened
early.
a long time ago. And
Yeah.
now we're here and everything breaks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
don't know how we go forward for, planning this.
It's just, I mean, it's like I think it's, if we start it, it might be depressing at first, but we have each other and we'll get through it,
Keep
Um,
down the
but-
hill, Thank you.
yeah, thanks, Joe. Are there any other questions or comments?
I have another question.
Go ahead, Judy.
So the other thing that the charter talks about is updating the existing plans and talking about projects that are pending. And that is something that also the OSC recommends that you actually provide, and also the PFM report. They recommend quarterly reports on the status of projects. And I think that that would be very helpful, because, frankly, as I've been working on, looking at past bonding, we have found a lot of things that where the funding has not been utilized at all in some cases, which doesn't particularly bother me if we haven't borrowed the money. But when we've borrowed the money, I think, there's an issue. But sometimes there's an authorization that sits out there. So so this is something that has been somewhat a part of the review that we have done because of the reports that I have asked for over the years about, what's in existing accounts and that kind of thing. And during that process, we're finding out that some projects just have not been teed up. And I think to some extent, holding departments' feet to the fire with regard to, you made this request. Now what are you doing to make sure that that money is being expended in the way that it's intended? And I'm working hard at not calling out any one person or department, but you guys all know that sometimes this has happened and we've had an excessive amount of money sitting around in one department or another. A lot of that I know has been being addressed, but I think that to make that an integral part of the budget process, as an expectation that now it's going to be public where the various projects stand. And really, right now that seems a little daunting because there are so many projects that are kind of outstanding. But over time, the goal is, I think, to get the money, get the funding, and the project is done in 2 or 3 years at most. The purchases are made, done, close out that account, and that kind of thing. So is that something that we can anticipate being part of this budget, or is there another mechanism that you're working on that will keep track of the implementation of those projects?
Yeah, that was something that I worked on extensively this year and also part of last year. Looking at water towns and looking at other municipal capital budgets, I haven't seen one where they include past projects into the physical budget book. It's something last year. It's one if I don't know if Mike's on this call, but I got a lot of grief out. I know everything I print is very tiny font, but just the the size of the tracker that we've built to track the status of old projects is massive. So if you were to print it out on paper, it's going to be almost impossible to see the individual lines. But we built a spreadsheet that tracks the status of all these projects, and we use that extensively to let us know like what projects departments are capable of taking. So if there was a department, like you mentioned, Judy, that might have borrowed too much and is falling behind on projects, whether that was related to COVID, whether it's related to other factors, we would know about that, and we wouldn't be, if we noticed that, we wouldn't be pushing projects in 2021, 2022. We would be looking at what are the status of their current projects. You know, it's behind the scenes stuff that we haven't incorporated into the budget book, I guess is the best way to put it. But we do have a mechanism now to track the status of old projects. It's something that we can produce upon request. But at the same time, while there could be departments that might be falling behind for one reason or the other, we also have a significant number of departments this year that have pretty much spent every single penny in their old accounts. So we, while there could be some that are falling behind, we also have a lot that are pushing ahead.
I'm very pleased to hear that. So last year, you with somebody in Darius's office did a major spreadsheet of all outstanding bonds and what is left in the authorization that was not yet bonded, and then also left in the account that was not yet used. Is that sort of the primary basis?
That's what I'm referring to. So for every single capital project, it's on this mass spreadsheet broken down by department. It'll have the amount authorized, the amount borrowed, and then it'll have all the balances down to the encumbrances. You can look up purchase orders. I mean, it tells you everything.
Is that something that could be part of the departmental presentations?
I can include it with departments. It's one of those things, not being, again, just being a budget guy and not a graphic designer. I haven't found a way yet to present it in a way where you can print it off and it's really legible. It's almost something that it's better to look at on a computer because it's a massive spreadsheet and there's so many columns. But I can definitely send it to you guys well ahead and well in advance of department presentations, so you can see where exactly each department is.
I know Mike somehow figured out a way. Mike O'Brien figured out. You weren't you able to print it big, Mike? I feel like you had somehow Mike was able to make it so.
If we could put a man on the moon, I can find a way to make the spreadsheet fit on a piece of paper.
I printed it on. So each.
Or was it you, Judy? Somebody did it where I was like, oh my gosh.
Well, it was on 2 8.5 by 11s. So all the columns were readable because we know that that's important for me to be able to.
The only thing that I've ever done is I've screenshot some of these and then I can blow them up to the size that I can read them.
So I just printed it out on 2 pages, and then I took the pages and I taped them together. Whoopee, high tech.
I was impressed.
But I found that extremely helpful. And actually, Nick, in addition to maybe providing for each department as they're coming forward, I think after the presentation of the budget, providing the whole overall picture so that we can look at that. Because one of the things that sometimes I get a little confused about is something that I would think would be in one department winds up in another. So, and I kind of have, to some extent, a mental running tally of bonds that I expect to see, I guess. So, for example, there was one that was put in planning that was really more an engineering bond, and that's
okay. That brings up a good point. Is the way that this spreadsheet works is it goes by the budget codes, it doesn't go by the ordinance number. I mean, that could be something that I try to, because I know that that's how you refer to them, by the ordinance number from when they were issued.
I do not. I use the project description. I use the project title.
Okay. I thought I remembered that, but if the account number works for you, I can design it any way you need it. But yeah, there are some. So like for instance, there were some old accounts in the fire department that were for firehouse repairs. So the GH account would say it's a fire department account, but we've actually moved that into engineering's department. So even though engineering is a certain number, it has a couple accounts from fire and police in there as well.
We're getting there.
Yeah, this is great.
I appreciate, Nick, I really do appreciate all the hard work that
Yeah,
you are doing on this.
we're definitely getting there. I mean, vehicles was the big one. I would love to move on to asset management. Just I mean, there's going to be some, I guess, some maybe bigger complications with that than there are with vehicles, but definitely tackle one at a time. And part of that is I just don't have too much institutional knowledge about that. But you know, as we get vehicles straightened down, it's something in the next couple of years we can really start working on addressing.
And when I thank you for all your work on it, I don't want to exclude Mike and Nick Blaze.
It makes me better when I ask for a raise, Judy. So just focus on me.
No raises this year.
I know.
So, no, but you know, going back 4 years ago, you know, I asked to understand this better, and Mike and Nick Blaze started working on producing reports that you have then used as a foundation, and also people in Darius's office have also assisted in this. So I don't, you know, while I just singled you out, I don't want to exclude anybody else, because it was.
I'll make sure Ron knows it.
What?
Yeah.
I'll make sure Ron knows it.
Thank you. Thank you.
So if there's no other questions from council members, we have so many meetings coming up. I would love to release people, including tomorrow night. So don't forget about tomorrow night. We have several items of legislation that we have to, I think they'll be pretty quick. I don't have them off the top of my head, but they shouldn't take too long. And then we get to talk about kind of a similar thing where we're going to have the broader view of more the fiscal climate around the budget. So we're not going to get any specific numbers. I'll talk about this again tomorrow, but it would be great if we could have an early night so I don't burn everyone out with the many, many meetings that we'll have. I appreciate everyone so much. Thank you to my fellow council members for coming here. And all of you guys, I can't thank all of you enough for your hard work, because this is not an easy thing to do. And this is really, it's exciting. So with that, with nothing else, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Second. Joyce has moved. I'm seconding.
And all right, well, have a great night, everyone. And again, thank you all so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.